Greg Hunter. Go ahead, Greg.
So, Gerad, just asked this of Neil as well. In terms of explosive plays, which you guys were so much better at this past Saturday than previous games, same thing I asked him. Organic in terms of how they come about, or how much can you dictate them through calls?
Yeah, you know what? I'd be curious to hear Coach Brown's answer, so I'll make sure and go back and listen to it. But I think, I mean, and I'm really not dodging it at all, Greg. I think it's both, right? I mean, so if we do our jobs as parents and as coaches, you hope that your kids and your players take on some semblance of your personality. So if we're aggressive in nature, if we hold great responses in good results and bad, so on and so forth, you sure hope that your players and families kind of go on with that. So I think what happens is if we're aggressive in our approach, if we're demanding in our approach of us wanting to be more explosive and getting good results and being attacking, our guys will take on the same personality. So I think that's one piece of it, mentality. And then the next piece would be certainly that if we stick to what we're continuing to get better at and the things we believe our players are good at, they kind of happen, as you said, organically within the game. So a couple of those you saw happen in third downs, you know. And to be real honest with you, we probably would have seen the same result had we maybe played at the same level 2 weeks ago on some of those third down plays that we would want back. So it's really just a matter of making plays and then also continuing to have a mentality about us to be explosive.
Michael Sussman, go ahead.
Letty Brown has run the ball well throughout his entire career, but in this season, he seems like he's really evolved kind of as that bell cow every down back. Would you mind kind of speaking a little bit on his evolution as a player, sort of on the field, but also behind the scenes?
Sure. I think, to be fair, I haven't got a chance to see his growth as much and only being here this year. And then you take away what's happened through our pandemic and not seeing anything in spring practice. I know on the time that I've been here, I think Letty has really, with the help of Coach Scott, really changed his practice habits. If you all were able to come see him practice and see how he practices and how the backs finish plays from the backfield or in the pass game, you would quickly be able to look and step back away from it and say, okay, I get why this guy's become a productive player. He's got great practice habits. He's learning how to be a practice player every day. And so then he gets to reap what he's sown because he's a tough tackle. He finishes plays vertically. He holds his lines in the run game and manipulates backers throughout his runs. There are a lot of things that are happening on purpose out there for him in a game, not by mistake. And it's little things that are created during practice that are paying off for him on game day, if that answers your question.
John Antonik.
Curious, turnovers are a big part of what they do. It was a big part in the Oklahoma State game last week. It was a big part of the West Virginia loss last year in the fourth quarter. It's a negative stat. How do you approach that as a coach with your guys? How do you address that with your guys?
Yeah, good question. And honestly, I think if we're doing our jobs as coaches and building the right kind of culture, that you wouldn't address it any differently than you would any other week. Throughout my career, one of the best things I ever heard a coach say would be that if you're fixing the things that you see on film when you lose differently from when you win, the winning won't last very long. So to be real honest with you, we better be coaching ball security and the ability for us to take care of it the exact same week by week, not based on results of win or loss. And I would say we'll obviously be very, very happy with the results week in and week out. So is it something they do well? Absolutely. But we have to coach ball security and coach it at a high level every single week.
Ryan Pritt.
Hey, Coach. I thought Bryce had some interesting comments after the game Saturday, just kind of talking about how all the criticism that group took over the last couple of weeks was kind of taken personally by them. Was that something you kind of sensed with that room, just kind of rallying behind that and using it for, motivation or whatever? And kind of how would you assess them Saturday, and how good was it to see them have a performance like that?
Yeah, I think, I was very open with them. We were very open about it in our room. Some of that stuff, it's part of the job. What I want to do is deflect most of it. It's all my responsibility first. Those guys took it personal, and they should. The mere fact is, if we'd have played at a high level, they wouldn't have had to take that on, and they know it. So they took it personal, and they should take it personal. And we also know that it's a very fleeting profession and activity we're in. So if we play well one week, but we don't play well the next, nobody remembers that. We've got a passionate fan base. We've got a fair fan base that expects us to play at a high level, and they want us to play well. They know that. I know that. But certainly, is there a good use for us to make sure we kind of rally around each other and make it about each other instead of an individual thing, or to start to kind of get away from the fray and avoid each other? That could be the worst thing that could happen. So I would answer your question and tell you that we absolutely did use it that way, to rally around each other and make sure that we play for each other and to respond the right way. And if we got motivated by some of those things from 2 weeks ago that allowed that to happen, then it was well worth it.
Cody Nesper, you're next.
Hey, Gerad, I wanted to ask you about Michael Laughlin. Just what have you seen from him this year? And then what role do you want tight ends to play in the offense?
Yeah, good question. So Michael, along with TJ Banks, who's continuing to become a good young player, we're really happy as a staff with our tight ends and how they're progressing. Listen, I like Michael. I think he's been eager to continue to grow his craft. And being at Penn State last year and being around Pat, who's one of the top tight ends, if not the top tight end in the country. I think Mike O knew that from coming from there. And it's pretty cool to be able to share some of the things about him that allowed him maybe to know what practice habits he wanted to change. He's taken those on with Coach Trickett. Those guys have done a great job building that room. And the way they're fitting run game, helping us in protection, and now becoming a pass threat. You saw him run with the football afterwards and keep his feet in the ground. And convert on a couple third downs over the last 2 weeks and really become a valuable piece of this. We're really celebrating that with him, and we want that room to continue to grow and keep headed the way it is, and it's really good to see him get to where he's going.
Keenan Cummings.
Hey, Gerad, how much flexibility does a guy like Winston Wright give you? It looks like you guys can use him all over the field and do a lot of different things with him.
Yeah, he's growing into his own. He's another guy that's learned. He's continued to learn how to practice and then play at a high level throughout the week, which will lead to the games. He's got a unique skill set. He's got good top-end speed. You can hand it to him a little bit and find a way to get him in some matchups and push him vertically and put him on some stuff underneath. So he's put himself in a position that you can use him a lot of different ways, just like you said. And anytime you can use a guy that many ways, it allows you to get him touches. And so good things happen for a guy like that getting touches, and it's a constant challenge for us as an offensive staff to keep finding ways to use him because he's continuing to be productive, and he's going to have a hell of a career here.
Kirk Bowles.
Yeah, Coach, I wonder if there's any one or two stats that are different for y'all that reflect improvement. Is it first down average? Is it third down conversion rate? Is there one or two things that you and Neil and the staff put a lot more emphasis on?
Good question. I would say this, Kirk. I think that Coach Brown down, we really put a big emphasis on getting better in the red zone offense, making sure that we obviously ball security. I think that's every year, and then running the football. So I guess if we were to sit here at the end of the year and judge ourselves, points per game is clearly one that's always there. But if you took points per game out and said, hey, what's our turnover margin? How well did we improve running the football, and how much better were we in the red zone scoring? I think those will be the ones that we'll be sitting around Christmas kind of looking at. If that answers your question, we sure hope those at the end of the season look much higher.
Last couple for Coach. Go ahead, Ryan.
Kind of a two-parter, Gerad. It seems like every defense in this league has one or two guys that are just, really good players, and this is obviously no exception. Just kind of wanted your thoughts on what you see on film with the Osai kid and how good he's been. And then also, this defense as a whole, kind of like Neil pointed out, they've played some of the best offenses in this league. So while the statistics aren't great, that could probably sway those a little bit. Just what is this a case of a defense that's maybe a little bit better coming in here than what their numbers say they are?
Yeah, the film certainly tells a different story. This is a tremendously gifted defense. They've got length, they've got speed and power inside, experienced guys and corners outside. Osai's an issue. He's got great rush ability and length, plays with a great motor and gets you on the edge for our tackles. So we certainly are not watching film and thinking that this is something that we'll be able to kick back on. Well, this is a big challenge for us. Our players know it. Our staff knows it, and they create issues. So we're going to have to combat those issues, and I think our guys will be up for the challenge. But there certainly starts with Osai and that pass rush and his ability to get to the passer that comes up and pops off on film.
Mike Kazaza.
Gerad, how's it going?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing great, thanks. Kind of going off a little bit of O'Loughlin and Banks to a lesser extent. You're putting them in all different dots in the backfield and the line of scrimmage and the slot, even out wide too. And you're playing with a little bit more tempo lately too. Have you been able to have a few more luxuries with formations and transition from snap to snap, being able to keep those guys on the field and move them around and be a little bit more diverse without subbing and changing personnel?
Yeah, good observation. I'll respectfully